Hey guys, I hope you had a great weekend. First thing before we get started, just a reminder that your Chapter 2 test is due today, so make sure that you have gotten that completed here over the weekend. Today what we're going to be doing is we are going to be starting a new chapter. We're going to be starting Chapter 8, which is dealing with geometry. So first you're going to want to complete today's bell ringer. Then today's lesson is going to deal with points, lines, segments, and rays. You'll be able to name different types of points, lines, segments, and rays, along with starting to identify parallel, intersecting, and skew lines. I will tell you, kind of as a heads up here, that Chapter 8 has a lot of vocabulary. So my goal for that is, for each lesson, I will be making a Quizlet, so that you guys can kind of have another way to practice that vocabulary. And with each lesson, I will be adding new vocabulary to the same Quizlet. Today, we're going to be going over points, lines, and segments. And then you guys will be practicing with identifying line, segments, and rays with the IXL practice as we get into then tomorrow with identifying parallel, intersecting, and skew lines. So in the next page of your notebook, you are going to want to label it with Chapter 8 vocabulary or Unit 8. And again, we do have a couple of vocabulary words today. Our first one is point. Point is a location in space. It has no size, and you can name it with a capital letter. So when you're dealing with points in math, again, there is no size, so they can be different shapes. And then you'll notice that each of those points is labeled with a capital letter. So again, point is a location in space. It has no size, and you name the point with a capital letter. Our next vocabulary word is a line. So a line is a series of points that extends in two opposite directions and does not have an end. There is no thickness, and you can use any 2 points on the line to name it. So as you see our line here, you can see that with these arrows, gotta get my pen here. With these arrows, it means that it is extending in both directions, and it will tell us that that means that it's going on and on. There is no end to it. So since there are 2 points on that line, I can label the line as AD or line DA. And you'll see that above the points here that you have the line symbol, and that tells me that I have a line, but it does not matter the order that you write it in. So it can be line AD or line DA. Our next vocabulary word is a segment. A segment has 2 endpoints and all the points of the line between the endpoints. So that means that you have to use the endpoints to signify your segment. So if I were to continue this line and have another segment, I could have segment AC, which is this line right here, or CA, or I could have segment, and you'll see that the segment is just a plain line with no arrows because it does end at the points. Or I could do segment AD, which would be this entire line. So a segment is naming a name in between 2 points. And those 2 points kind of show where that line ends. So you'll see that this segment does not have lines that go outside the point. And the points that I use to name that line are the ones that are at the end. Hence the word endpoints. Our next one is a ray. So a ray consists of 1 endpoint. and all the points of the line on one side of the endpoint. To name an array, you have to use its endpoint first, and then any other point on the array. And my word got kind of mixed up there with that first. So to use its endpoint first, so you'll see that the endpoint is listed here with X. Now, array could be XY, showing that this is going on, or I could use XZ. But since X is the endpoint, that one does have to come first. So when it comes to array, the order does matter. You have to start with the endpoint, and then since there is more than one point on this line, I can use either one of those points to name that array. Because even though there is a point at Y, the line still continues on past Z, so that is why XY would work. And as you can see, when I am identifying it down here, you'll see that my line has nothing on this end, but has the arrow on this end to signify an array. So it starts here, and then that arrow shows that the array is going on and has no end. We have a few examples here. So if I look at this first line, I can see that since there are two endpoints, it is a segment. And a segment is identified with just a single line. And now I can identify that segment as segment LM. Or can you figure out how else you can label that segment? Our next one is array. So there's only one way. Now again, when I am signaling my array, it is a line with one arrow, and it does not matter which way the arrow goes. Since E is my endpoint, I always have to start with E. So it would be EF or array EF. And again, it does not matter which way the arrow goes. Now again, I have a segment, so that's just a straight line. I have segment RS, or how else can I write it? Now my next one is a line. Since I have two arrows, you will be creating a line, and it's line VW, or how else can you verify it or classify it or label it? And then here's another array. So I have the array, and it would be GH, and there's only one way to write that. And my last one is a line with my two arrows, and I can label it as line JK, or how else can I label it? So today what you're going to be doing is, as part of your IXL practice, you guys are going to be practicing labeling lines and segments. Okay, that is going to help us with tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to be looking at collinear points. So you're going to want to write down the vocabulary for this for tomorrow. Collinear means that I have all the points on one line. All the points fall on the same line. Non-collinear points is that you cannot draw the points on the same line. So as you can see, I have my line here, but all the points are in different spots and they do not line up along that line. So collinear points are ones that all fall on the same line, where non-collinear do not fall on the same line. Then we have 4 more vocabulary words, and we're going to be doing more examples with this tomorrow. But today we need to know how to identify the lines so that these 4 will make more sense tomorrow. So our first vocabulary word is a flat surface. So a plane. A plane is a flat surface with no thickness and that extends without an end in all directions on the surface. An intersecting line, they have exactly one point in common. Parallel lines have no points in common. So an intersecting line would be like crossroads or an X. They have one intersecting. Parallel lines would be the two lines that go side by side but never cross. So think of like a train track. And skew lines are lines that are not parallel and do not intersect. So skew line would be something where I have two lines that are not parallel, but they do not intersect, or something like that. Okay. Then for your homework today, you're going to be working on IXL CC13. And that is going to then be identifying lines, segments, and rays. Now, if I look at this figure, I had to identify, is it a segment, a line, a segment, or a ray? So you can see the three boxes there. Now, if I say it's a segment, I can use segment EF or FE, and then I would hit submit. So to submit your answers, you'd have to do first identify if it's a line, segment, or ray, and then I had to use the points to label it. Now again, it's going to be important to know how to identify the lines, as we will have multiple lines working together dealing with intersecting and parallel lines. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you are reaching out to me and I will help you with those. Otherwise, we will talk to you guys tomorrow.